Hi everyone, thanks for coming back for part 3. I wanted to get back to this comment over here by Arthur Prudent because there's something really important that I wanted to point out about this link. But over here he's saying, it is interesting that psi has the numeric value of 700. In Hebrew, 700 is for final non-seed. The interplay between cosmic energies symbolized by male and female leading to greater creation. And so I wanted to talk about this link some more because I believe this is, aside from DNA, I believe this is the theme of the entire Bible, and that's the other thing that I wanted to try to explain next. But what's really amazing about this link is that I'll put the link in the description box. I know you can't see the URL right now, but if you look at the URL, this was actually published in April of 2007. And what's really amazing is that in this article, they've actually concluded with the number 777. They're saying over here that, I'll just read it from the beginning. It says, research revealed that some clarity was required for the numbers and the letters for 5, 6, 7, 50, 60, 70, and 500, 600, and 700. Creation, both physical and spiritual, is a merging of male and female. The physical side is a metaphor for the spiritual, and these concepts are embedded in the symbols of the Proto-Hebrew letters. When this is brought into focus, then another mystery is solved. The number of man is 666. The number of woman is 555. And the result of the union is 777. Okay, so this is really amazing to me because the thing that I've been wanting to explain is that aside from the DNA, I believe this is the other mystery of the entire Bible. And what I wanted to explain is how I believe the culmination over here with when the Mount of Olives splits, how this is a representation of the consummation of the covenant. I wanted to explain how God describes this in Zechariah 14, but this will have to be in another video. But the point is that I believe this is the entire theme of the entire Bible. And I'm seeing more and more things that seem to confirm this. For example, this video over here by Jonathan Kleck that I wanted to talk about. And then there was this imagery over here which seems to confirm it as well. And so I'll try to explain that more in another video if the Lord doesn't return first. But basically I have to agree with this article that this is the theme of the Bible. And it's really amazing that it culminates with the union, and the union is expressed with the number 777, and we're in the Hebrew year 5777 currently. Okay, so now I want to get back to Yeshua's name because I was explaining in one of the comments to Arthur Prudent how I believe that these two numbers, the number 3 and the number 4, represent DNA because there's 4 nitrogenous bases, and the codon is made up of a sequence of 3 nitrogenous bases, and so it's all based on the numbers 3 and 4. And I was saying how I believe that's the reason why the 144,000, which is a multiple of 12, is in the books in Revelation that are a multiple of 7, which would be chapters 7, 14, and 21. And 3 plus 4 is 7, but 3 times 4 is 12. Okay, so I had said in this comment that I believe all the multiples of 12 represent the people of God, and of course the number 7 is the number for God. But also mentioned over here that I just recently realized that the number 26 is or 276 is a multiple of 12, and that's the number that had come up in Acts 27, where it was talking about the 216 souls that were saved in the ship. And I had actually come across this scripture when someone had asked me to look up the Strong's number in the Greek for 777, and it comes up with this one verse over here in Acts 27 where it says, "And while the day was coming on, Paul beset them all to take meat, saying, This is the 14th day that ye have tarried and continued fasting, having taken nothing." And then that's where it talks about the 276 souls that were saved over here in verse 33. And I had speculated that this had to do with DNA because it talked about the ropes being cut from the boat, and then it mentions the 276 souls that were saved on the ship. So I speculated that this must have something to do with DNA. And so when I had searched the meaning of the number 276, I came up with this article, and this article explains why this number is all about DNA. And so that pretty much confirmed what I was speculating. And so I'll put the link to this article in the description box. Okay, so in response, Arthur Prudent provided these links over here, which were really interesting, about the number 144. Okay, so he shared this video over here where it's talking about the number 10, or the letters I and O, which look like the number 10, and all the different ways that the gematria value comes up to 144 using the Sumerian, the Francis Bacon, the Satanic. There's all these different ways that he's come up with this number, and 12 times 12, which is 144, the gematria for that is 1,440. And there's a lot of other interesting facts that he explains in here about how the word TikTok even comes up to 144, and within the word TikTok you have the I and the O, which again looks like the number 10. The yin-yang sign comes up to 104, which looks like the number 69. And then he also shared this video over here that explains that the gematria, the Jewish gematria for the word time, is 144. And then there's some other facts over here about how there's 1,440 minutes in a day, and how all these numbers add up to that they're used in the Greek letters are used to calculate the gematria. And so there's all these connections with the number 144 in time, or 144 and the number 10, which is explained in this video. And I thought that was really amazing because it's in Revelation 10 where it says that the mighty angel, that a mighty angel came down from heaven. And then if you skip down over here to verse 6, it says that he lifted up his hand and he sware by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are therein, and the earth and the things that are therein, and the sea and the things which are therein, that there should be time no longer. And this word time is the word, in the Greek it's pronounced chronos, but it's the word Chronos, is how it's pronounced in English, which is what was depicted here in this video. It's saying Chronos is the personification of time in Greek mythology, but it's not just in Greek mythology. As I explained in the comment, I believe there's always the true and the false. And you see over here that it's the mighty angel that came down from heaven that lifts up his hand to heaven and says in verse 6 that there should be time, or chronos, which means time, no longer. And then the very next verse is verse 7, where it says, but in the days of the voice of the seventh angel, when he shall begin to sound, the mystery of God should be finished, as he hath declared to his servants, the prophets. So the mystery is finished in verse 7. I've pointed that out before. But what I pointed out in the comment is something else that I've pointed out before, and that is that I believe this imagery over here is the same imagery as in Zechariah 14. And I believe this imagery is the same as the imagery in Revelation 14, where it talks about the 144,000. But you see that it's over here in verse 4. So you have Zechariah 14:4, which looks like the number 144. And remember, it was in Revelation 10 that he said there would be time no more. And there's this connection between time and the gematria number 144. It's also the gematria for the word time in the Jewish gematria. But you see over here in Zechariah 14:4 is when the Lord will stand, his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem, and on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof, toward the east and toward the west, and there shall be a very great valley, and half of the mount shall be removed toward the north, and half of it toward the south. And I've explained before how when you look at this in the Greek, you see that it says that it's going to cleave towards the east and towards the sea. And when I saw that, I realized that the east is where the land is, it's where Israel is, and then the west would be where the sea is. And so this was describing the same thing as Revelation 10:6. I believe it's also describing the same thing as Zechariah 4:11. And I've explained before that the word olive in both the Greek and the Hebrew is the same word as olive tree. So the Mount of Olives could just as easily be described as the Mount of Olive trees. So I believe when the Mount of Olives splits, it's describing the same thing as Zechariah 4:11 when it talks about the plummet, the head of the corner being placed on the temple. That would be Jesus setting foot on the Mount of Olives. And then you have the same imagery in Revelation 11:4, which is like number 14 backwards, with the two olive trees. And then, of course, this begins with Revelation 10. And then I also pointed out how Chronos is depicted here with a scythe or a sickle. And in Revelation 14, Jesus is depicted with a sickle, and he's about to reap the harvest. And I've pointed out before that I believe this imagery represents a Hanukkah menorah because the two olive trees are also two candlesticks, so that would be 9 candles. But the real kicker is this. Chronos is, another name for Chronos is Father Time, which is another name for Santa Claus. And so you have Chronos, Father Time, and Santa Claus. They all mean the same thing. But like I said, there's always a true and a false. So these are some images from Revelation 14, when Jesus comes with a sharp sickle to reap the wheat harvest. And it just so happens to be in verse 17.